Well, I took a little leisurely drive Friday. You know, I had to do some errands, go to the bank, etc. And when I got back out to the parking lot, this is what I found. Nothing. Click. So, the battery is only 6 months old, so I believe that it's not the battery. We'll check the voltage. I think it's the starter solenoid. I think that the starter solenoid is stuck and it's not kicking in, engaging the starter motor. So we are going to troubleshoot this and we're going to see what happens. And just to let you know, this is a 1954 Chrysler New Yorker with a 331 Hemi V8 in it. Everything was running great, although the starter was acting weird. It was sometimes not engaging. The gear was not engaging into the flywheel, and it would just spin, and then I'd have to let it stop, click it again, and then it would kick in. So there's something going on there, and I got a feeling that that's where the problem is. So I will film this little troubleshooting adventure. Okay, first we're going to check the battery, check the voltage. Oh, fuck. .64 volts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the key on to auxiliary and load the battery down and see if something drops. See how much it drops. Well, I'm going to put my voltmeter on DC voltage, of course. Check the voltage. Okay, it's 1255. So that's very good, actually. I've got the key on, so I'm going to turn it back off to see what happens here. .51. We're all good. So let's check the starter motor. Problem is getting to the starter motor. I'm going to have to jack this thing up, put it on jack stands, and then we will check it. This is the fun part. I'm not going to bore you with this, so I'm going to jack this thing up and then we will start the recording again. The normal kind of superficial rust, really. That's about it. Otherwise, it looks pretty clean. You know, I could use a good sandblasting, I guess, but you know, I kind of leave this thing just as a daily driver. So, I'm going to put another jack stand on it. This one jack stand, I don't know. I'm not risking it. Well, the really fun part about working on a car, especially when you don't have a lift, is that the starter is on the other side. So that means now I got to go over and jack up the other side. I'll be back to you in a minute. Well, there is the starter motor right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just check the voltage to it and see what's going on. I see something weird right here. I don't know what the devil that is, but it's just a wire hanging loose. It's the problem with buying a car from a couple of amateurs that were working on it. Pretty ridiculous, but anyway. Let's see if I can get under enough. Okay, I have got a 3-point protection system here. I've got the hydraulic jack and 2 jack stands. I am not trusting my life for an old 54 Chrysler New Yorker. And you shouldn't either. And so that's why, see if I can see the wiring. Okay, well I'm going to get under here and I'm going to see what happens. And I'll put this on in a minute. Just to show you real quick. A jack stand and a hydraulic jack. And then up here there's another one. So that's what you got to do. You cannot risk your life on a hydraulic jack. You just cannot do it. Okay, I think you can see the cable there. And I got my voltmeter, and I'm going to see what I got here. I do not have the key on auxiliary. I've just got basically nothing turned on, but we should have 12 volts on this big heavy cable that's attached to the motor. Actually, it's attached to the solenoid. Let's see if I can see the meter. There we go. I'll just find a good ground here somewhere, pretty much anywhere on the frame. I can see it there. 12.64. So, I am going to assume that it's the starter or the cable that's turning on the solenoid. So, let's see. I've got a purple wire going to the solenoid, and then I've got a ground attached to the motor, which is actually attached to the engine. So should be good, actually. Should be great. Here's another issue I'm having. Let's get a look at this. Well, I don't know if you can see it. Anyway, there's a purple wire right there. That is the wire that turns on the solenoid. And I'm tracing this purple wire down. There you can see it. And I'm tracing this wire down, and I'm finding that it doesn't go straight up like it should. But it comes over here, and it goes there, and it goes there, and then it loops back around here, and then it comes back over here. And I don't know if you can see the purple wire right there, but you got to check this out. Look at that, you know. Oh, see it. Look at that. Okay, that wire is all tied up to the speedometer cable. Yay. So it could very well just be the wire. You know, it's like in there, here it goes there. That, and then it goes that way, and then it goes up. So the problem is I don't want to click this sucker on and have that starter trying to start the motor while I'm down under here, but I'm going to try and see if I can just get a direct wire and attach it to here, right on the starter. If you can see that, there it is right there. I'm going to attach that right straight up to the ignition switch and bypass all this bullshit. You gotta wonder, okay, I'm not taking any long trips with this thing yet, that's for sure. God. Well, okay, I clipped that wire and I brought it down here, and it's a long one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this wire, this right here. I'm going to cut that because this part here, I don't know if you can see that. That part right there goes up to the ignition. This part right here, oh come on, that one goes all the way to the starter, and it just fishes. So I'm going to cut this, pull this out, and see what I can do here. I think that's the easiest, quickest thing. Okay, I'm going to climb up. I'm going to kick 12 volts onto that solenoid. That piece should plunge out. So let's see what happens. I'm going to show you a little trick to tell what's going on. Okay, here's the wire that's going down to the solenoid. Now, if the solenoid wire was disconnected somehow or the connection was broken, you wouldn't get anything. But watch this. You can see that. See that? That means that this wire is going somewhere. Either it's getting shorted out to ground, which it does not look like it, or it's going to the solenoid, and the solenoid is not activating. The solenoid coil is not activating. So that's just a little thing to know. Okay, I'm going to take the starter off. The very first thing I've got to do is disconnect the 12 volts, because there's 12 volts going directly to the starter, and the last thing I need is for that thing to start arcing and popping onto the casing when I'm trying to take it off. So, got to do that. Okay, there is one of the nuts. There's only 2 nuts holding this thing on. So I'm not going to record this because you'll probably watch me bust my knuckles trying to get these nuts off. So anyway, I'm going to pull this sucker off and then I'll start recording once I get the nuts off. Well, I'm making headway. Believe it or not, I've got the bolts loose, or the nuts loose on the starter. I had to disconnect the exhaust pipe to get the starter out, of course. There's that, you can see. And it actually came off easy. I couldn't believe it. I just had some penetrating oil sprayed on the bolts, let it sit there for a couple minutes, and they just came right off, which is really amazing. Because normally this is the thing that's frozen and they end up breaking off, and then you got to go get new bolts, and you know how it is. But anyway, I was lucky this time. So I'm going to try to get this starter off, and then we'll take a look. Well, I got the bolts off, I got the wires off, I had everything that I need except lighting. There you go. So now you can see. So now I can pull it off, pull it down, and we'll take a look. Well, time to celebrate. There's the starter. Pretty simple device, big electric motor. These things actually were 6 volt originally. We converted this system over to a 12 volt system, so it would be easier to get parts and things like that, batteries. But this is really a simple device. See, the ground goes through here to the block, Here's where the 12 volt sits right there. And then this is also the 12 volts that engages the solenoid and kicks it in. And this is what happens. Boom. Kicks in, and then the motor. Also, there's a relay in here that sends the 12 volts to the coil in the motor and starts to spin. So I think it's this. Usually is this. These motors are pretty heavy duty. And when we engaged the 12 volts onto here, this didn't do anything. So that's the deal. So we're going to take this apart and we're going to see what we got, and I'll probably have to find one of these. I doubt if it can be repaired unless it's just something burned inside. But that's the deal. We have removed the starter from a 1954 Chrysler New Yorker with a 331 Hemi V8, and we did it without a lift, with a couple of jack stands, some good tools, and a lot of patience. Okay, I will get back to you when we get this thing all apart. Well, I found something very interesting. It's burned. So I wonder if maybe we lost our ground connection. It's quite possible. I'm going to take this all apart and see if it's just a conductivity problem. See, you can see that it's been arcing. This is really nice. That is original Chrysler, made in USA, 6 volt, but we can use 12. It doesn't really hurt them. Higher voltage is just less current, so in a way it's better. These things were built really heavy duty. I mean, they built stuff heavy duty. It was heavy back then, but it was built like tanks. You know, you should see some of these little electric motors now that they use to start engines. It's ridiculous. They look like toys. So anyway, probably never would find one of these, Autolite, or one of these solenoids. But I got a feeling, interesting feeling, that something's going on with this solenoid. I'm going to do a couple tests and I'll show you how it works. Okay, how about a little wager? Let's wager that this motor is going to spin, okay? I'm going to wager that this motor is good. Here goes. Well, yeah, it's got a lot of torque. But, yes, it did spin. Let me see if I can put something back here. Keep it from locking. Now, it did spin. Here goes. I think we have a good motor. So, we do have a solenoid problem. Okay, here is a solenoid open. And I don't know if you can see in here, but these two poles here, as I said, the 12 volts comes in here, and when this is engaged, it puts these contacts, it connects these two contacts together. If you can see down in here, there's a round plate that this coil inside this pushes that plate up against the backside of these two pins, which essentially shorts them together, and then it puts the 12 volts onto the motor, which we know spins. So I think that this coil is probably burned out, or we had a bad connection. I think that's the problem. And once again, we are going to do a little experiment with some jumper cable. So you don't need any special equipment to do this. All right, here we go. This is probably going to spark a lot, but you know, it's the price you got to pay. Don't worry about it too much. Okay, I just want to know if this is going to engage or not. Okay, here goes. Nothing. Alright, so that's, the coil is there, but the coil is not engaging. The coil is connected, maybe shorting or something out. I don't know, but let's see if we can see that little thing down inside there. Let's try this again. Yeah, see? That little piece right there. That little piece right there is supposed to push up like that, up against those two. It's not, so I need a new one of these. It's not anything you can repair. At least I can't repair it. I doubt if anybody else. It's better just to get a new one, if we can find it. So I'm going to start doing a search. But as you can see, we've saved a ton of money, and it's not that hard. It's pretty simple, really. So once I find one, we will put this all back together. And nice thing about having an old classic sitting around is you don't have to be driving it tomorrow, which is such a pain in the ass when you're working on your regular driving car. So that's one good thing. Anyway, okay. We will get back to you soon.